Hello, everyone. Forest Focus as Nottingham Forest complete their stint in the Northwest tomorrow when they take on Manchester United at Old Trafford. Can Forest bounce back from Wednesday's 3-0 defeat to Manchester City? And if so, how? Joining me to discuss all that today is Paul Morley. Paul, good to have you with us. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Matt. It's Friday afternoon, the sun's shining. So, yeah, feeling good. Feeling good.
Yeah, good to have you with us. Pete was going to join us as well, but he had to drop out. But not to worry. He sent us a lineup. Paul's done a lineup. I've done one. We're going to keep it to about 30 minutes because I was saying to Paul before we start recording, I'm conscious that I feel like we've done so much stuff this week that people might be getting burned out. But we'll do this, and there's no opposition preview this for this game, so hopefully this cancels it out. But yeah, looking forward to discussing the game, Paul. How are you feeling about it in general on the back of Wednesday night at the Etihad?
Yeah, I think Wednesday was kind of went as I expected it to. I did think it was, there was sooner or later they were going to turn up and be themselves, and I think any team in the league is going to struggle to live with them when they're in that sort of mode and mood. So yeah, I wasn't surprised by Wednesday. I thought actually if you compared it to the Arsenal game a couple of weeks before, I know we set up in a very similar way, and I'm sure we'll talk about the whys and wherefores of that kind of setup in those games. But if you think you compare the two games, sort of next to one another, I thought we showed a lot more endeavour and threat on Wednesday than we did at Arsenal. So I guess if you're looking for positives, and you could say, well, over the course of those couple of games, we improved, although obviously the result didn't improve. I think my biggest concern going into this game tomorrow is how we've struggled to score from open play in the last few weeks. I think the last time we scored from open play was Aina against West Ham, which I think is like something like 6.5 hours of football. So that is a concern, and it's something we're going to have to address obviously sooner rather than later. Hopefully that does change tomorrow. But yeah, I think we're potentially in a bit of a tricky spot, but the league table suggests that things are still healthy. So on looking at it through that lens, it's a game where we can potentially go and get something.
Were you in the camp of being disappointed on Wednesday with, I don't know if it was how people saw it as a lack of respect, a lack of intensity, whatever it was in terms around us, arguably standing off them, and how that relates to how we go into Old Trafford? Do you feel like we need to be much more up and at it from the start, or do you feel actually Kevin De Bruyne is just really good and adept at finding pockets of space, and Pep set them up really well? Where are you on that balance?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So I looked at the team on Wednesday, and I think you discussed it last night with Lewis and James about that why have we abandoned the sort of Liverpool template that worked so well earlier in the season, and even I think at Chelsea we played with only one winger rather than two to start with. So yeah, I guess we sort of seem to be set up to go at them. And if you think about how City have struggled in the last few weeks, it has been when teams have taken them on. So you could kind of understand the rationale for that in terms of going with the three winger, with the two in midfield and two wingers, with Morgan in that sort of advanced three ahead of Dominguez and Yates. The issue obviously is that when you try and go toe to toe with City or teams like that, as we saw against Arsenal, that they have the quality to play through you and unpick you. And De Bruyne obviously was kind of ran the show, didn't he, on Wednesday? So yeah, I think we, as I say, we sort of set up to have a go at them, but then didn't really do that. And we, so we kind of almost were sort of between a rock and a hard place. We didn't sort of go in with the Liverpool template, but then even the template that we went with, we didn't really sort of look, as you say, didn't go from the off on the front foot to look to try and get at them. So we sort of did neither nor, and the end result was that they had a pretty comfortable evening, albeit, as I say, we did pose a bit of a threat on occasion, but ultimately it was I think a fair result in the end.
Excellent. Right, like I say, we're keeping this one a bit tighter than normal, so we'll get into lineups. Just before we do that, a reminder that, excuse me, next game, home game, should I say, straight after Villa, free entry for Paul McGregor's band, The Upper Body, at the NAB, obviously, on Saturday the 14th of December. I think it's basically a 7:30 start, but I'm pretty sure it's his 50th birthday on that day, and Paul should be on next week as a guest to talk Forest, obviously, and discuss the gig and music a little bit. it. But football's more of my expertise than music, and people would probably argue that football isn't my expertise at all. So it should be interesting chatting to Paul. Anyway, right, back to Paul Morley in this case. We'll go through our lineups. Like I say, Paul's done one, Pete's done one, I've done one, and we'll rattle through those and have a chat around them. We'll start with yours, Paul. In fact, before we do that, I'll just put this graphic up. We discussed this last night, but our conversations probably relate to how Man United play under Amorim. The personnel are always different. He's made loads of changes, but this formation is the formation that he plays. It's 3-4-2-1, basically 2 10s who are quite mobile. In behind one striker. That's what he did at Sporting Lisbon, and that's what he's done at Manchester United so far. So it's a different departure. It's a departure from Ten Hag, and it's quite different to how other teams play in the Premier League. I can't remember teams regularly playing a back three too often, apart from a bit of Wolves, a bit of Conte, stuff like that. So that perhaps forms our thinking a little bit. So anyway, this is what Paul has done. If I click on the right one, yeah, that's it. Right, I'll read this out and then we'll chat through it. Sells in goal, Aina Milenkovic, Murillo and Alex Moreno in a back four. Yates and Dominguez with Anderson forming what looks like a midfield three. And then Elanga and Gibbs-White fairly narrow in behind Chris Wood. Talk us through your thinking there and correct me if I've got anything wrong, Paul.
Yeah, no, it's I think what I was trying to sort of create really was kind of a bit of fluidity in that sort of midfield and supporting behind Wood. So I think if you look at this, you've got Gibbs-White and Anderson, effectively could interchange between dropping into that sort of third midfielder role and the more advanced role sort of behind Wood alongside Elanga. And I even sort of have to think about actually, Elanga could almost sort of switch sides at will depending on where where we're attacking or even who Man United pick and who he wants to isolate. So I think that's the one thing that Nuno sort of said in his press conference, and is that whilst the shape that Man United are going to play is probably pretty certain, I think the personnel is kind of up for debate. I think it feels like Amorim's sort of gone in there and said to everybody, look, I'm going to give you all a bit of a run out in the first 2 or 3 weeks and kind of prove to me what you've got, and then we'll move forward from there. And it feels like he's still sort of in that sort of experimental sort of finding out phase at the moment. So it's difficult to know exactly what they're going to come up with, but I just thought this blend, particularly in midfield, shores us up a little bit. I mentioned before how we've obviously seemed to have gravitated away from that Liverpool template, and this is probably a bit more the Chelsea template. I think at that game, I think the starting 11 was pretty much this, but I think Ward-Prowse started instead of Dominguez, and I think Hudson-Odoi started instead of Elanga. So, but the shape was much the same, and I think that's probably the type of type of template that I would use going into this game. A bit of a blend of what we've seen in the last couple of away games, be a little bit more resolute with an extra body in midfield, but still retain an Elanga, for example, as a bit of pace and attacking threat alongside Wood to sort of hopefully feed him and give us the opportunity to create stuff at the top end of the pitch.
Anyone you're kind of ruefully leaving out there, like maybe Jota? I'm thinking of. I don't know anyone who almost made your selection.
Yeah, I suppose probably. I guess you've got Jota, Hudson-Odoi, and Elanga pretty much vying for that. Like I said, roaming role a bit, switching flanks, etc., and probably being the most furthest forward except Wood. And I just went with Elanga purely from a pace perspective. I think all three of them, if he started one of the three of them in that role, I wouldn't be disappointed. I just thought Elanga had a better game on Wednesday, and I know this seems to have split opinion a little bit. I think your feeling was that he looked a bit better. So yeah, I just think he's come off a relatively positive performance. So in order to try and keep his confidence high, I think I'd stick with him in that role for this game.
Excellent. Right, we'll go through Pete's and then we'll have a chat around what he said. He sent me a couple of notes as well, but this is what he has submitted. Sells in goal, same back four, basically as normal. Aina, Milenkovic, Murillo and Moreno. Yates and Anderson in midfield, and then both wingers, or two of the wingers, Elanga and Hudson-Odoi, playing Gibbs-White in the 10 and Chris Wood up front. So that's pretty similar to what we've played all season. I've put down the notes, so I've copied down the notes here. Yates to go after Fernandez or Dominguez if Yates is injured. That's what Pete says. Anderson in because we've lacked control and been sloppy in possession without him. both wide men, because we can get behind wing backs who are still learning their role and attack their quite immobile centre backs. And he's put here an arm round Elanga and Hudson-Odoi. Go get them back to their best. It's amazing we are where we are, given both of them and Gibbs White are not really firing, but it's time to get them back at it. A few interesting thoughts there from Pete. What do you make of it? Just the plain, you a bit scared after that or not?
Well, I think the point about Yates going after Bruno was definitely one on my sort of bingo card as well. And I think if you look back to how he's done, probably a couple of his best games this season have been away at Liverpool and away at Chelsea, where he did a job on McAllister and a job on Fernandes. So he's certainly got the ability to do that. I guess the one thing I would say about those two games is that he had that extra body around. He had two other bodies around him, which gave him a bit of the license to go and do that job. So I think, against Chelsea, he would have had Anderson and who else was it? Ward-Prowse, wasn't it? And then at Liverpool, I think we had three of them. We had Anderson, Ward-Prowse, and Dominguez. So yeah, I definitely pin Yates on that role. I just worry about his ability to do that in a two. I just think that then maybe leaves us a bit open elsewhere. So that would be my concern. I mean, look, this is obviously again a team and a template that if we're playing them at home, absolutely, I would I'd be advocating this kind of a setup. I just think, as I said before, in some of these tougher away games, we just need to possibly go back to being a bit more resolute and hence in my sort of argument, sacrificing one of the wingers to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, I put out a clip this morning with Lewis talking about the lack of goals apart from Chris Wood. I hadn't really even thought about it so much. So obviously, you're aware we have a lack of goals apart from Wood, but I think Hudson-Odoi's got two. Obviously, we all remember Anfield. Elanga hasn't got any. Ramon Sosa's got one at Brighton, and Jota's got one in the Cup, and then Gibbs White's got one at Southampton. He's got a point, hasn't he? It is pretty mad that we're so competitive and high up the league when basically across the team there's been a lack of goals, hasn't there?
Yeah, I think there's only who's Everton, Palace, Ipswich and Southampton have scored less than us this season. So, we're in the sort of bottom five in terms of goals scored. Obviously, what's sort of, got us out of that hole effectively is how well the defence have been playing. But then, we've shipped three in three of the last four games. So, is that on the turn? And again, does that come back to how we've set up, particularly in those away games with only the two in the middle of the park rather than the three? But yeah, the lack of goals is a concern. But, I suppose you've got sort of two. You've only got really one option is to try and keep playing players into form, isn't it? And I guess I'm going to sort of argue with myself a little bit here in the lights of if you sacrifice one of the wingers, then you're only giving one of them a chance to up their scoring output. I think Lewis said last night, was it Elanga's not scored in 26 games? I think that's
last game was Newcastle at home. Yeah.
So
season.
That is a concern, isn't it? And I mean, hopefully, going back to his old club, that'll be a perfect place for him to write that record, wouldn't it, on Saturday if he gets the nod. So, I think we just got to persist at the minute, haven't we, with what we've got, and hope that we get a few breaks and some of those guys get on the score sheet. Gibbs White was a little bit unlucky not to score on Wednesday. It was pretty much did all he could with that shot that Ortega turned around the post in the first half. So again, keep getting into the positions, and Elanga again had an opportunity, didn't he, towards the end. So as long as we keep getting in these positions sooner rather than later, hopefully something's going to fall for one of the guys and hit the back of the net, and they're off then on the streak, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, that was a good save from Ortega. He got a good strong hand on it, and we have quite a few nearly moments, and obviously Chris Wood going through the middle of the pitch. So yeah, we could have scored 2 or 3 in that game. I mean, we could have conceded 6 or 7, but let's move on to this one. Okay, here's a team that I've done, which is completely different, which is quite good, I think. Excuse, that's not it. Completely different, which is good to see different options and see we've all got different thoughts, and it'd be interesting what Nuno actually does, because he'll have studied the tapes much more of United, and I suspect they'll have picked the team for this game before the City game, actually, in a way, around minutes and stuff like that. But I've got a back three, starting a back three for the first time this season, I think. Sells, Milenkovic, Murillo and Morato, who I thought was very good when he came on Wednesday. Aina and Moreno as wing backs. I've got Yates and Anderson in midfield, and then Jota and Gibbs-White in behind Wood. So there's a few players who could be different there. I mean, Yates could be Dominguez, but I sort of did have the Fernandez ruffling of feathers in my mind. Jota could be Anderson, and then Dominguez plays in midfield, or Jota could be Elanga, he could be Hudson-Odoi. Gibbs-White could play in midfield. It's more the shapes. I was just curious to see which matches up United. And James Belshaw as well had some interesting points about whether you play two up top. I mean, Jota could play up front and Gibbs-White could drop into midfield, and then it's a 3-5-2. That's a throwback to West Brom of the 2000s or something. But there's a few different options there. But a back three to me is interesting, and I think we look quite secure in a back three. And I like Murillo being able to step into midfield a little bit more. I wouldn't ever play Murillo as a midfielder myself because Milenkovic and Murillo have been such a good pairing. But this allows him to get on the ball a little bit and maybe help dictate. What do you think about a three? Are you interested in it or not?
Yeah, I quite like looking at that. I think before the season started, I expected us to use a back three a lot more in some of the away against the top six and maybe even at home against the top six. But we've obviously not done that, and it's probably because we've been certainly we started off the season so well and had the success with the back four that we haven't really been I guess forced to change our approach too much. I think had results not gone so favourably, we might have seen this kind of a setup before now. So yeah, I certainly wouldn't be averse to it. I think like you say, there's lots of flexibility around who specifically does what jobs with that 11, particularly around the midfield blend and who goes up and plays that sort of supporting role. So yeah, I quite like that, and I can see lots of merits for it. And like you say, it's matching up, isn't it? Matching up United, and I think as James said, the key battle in that sort of sense, if you're matching them up in that sort of shape, is who gets the better of in wide areas. So who pins who back. He was saying last night. So Moreno and Aina would be key to making sure they came out on top with the battles against whoever plays wide for United. I know they've played Diallo out wide, I think, against Everton. They've played who else? They played out wide. Malacia played, didn't he, the other night? So yeah, they seem to switch. Like I said, we're not quite sure what we're going to get from them personnel wise. So, but yeah, no, I quite like that. I certainly wouldn't be disappointed if that's what popped up on my Twitter feed at 4:15 on Saturday evening.
Yeah, we shall see. We shall see. I just think, going back to what you said as well, an extra body in midfield, packing the middle of the pitch a little bit. I feel like we've been passed around a little bit easily, but by two, we can't forget how good Arsenal and City are. I mean, they're levels above them and Liverpool. I feel like they're a level above everyone else, and then Chelsea are kind of in behind them. And I don't think you can forget the quality of them. It's interesting how good United are. I think the big thing for me, Paul, is having that intensity in our game and that discipline and being hard to beat. That's probably the frustration of the last two for me, is that this last two away games, it felt like we haven't played our best, I think, is probably what's frustrating. If we played our best and still lost, which was entirely acceptable or expected, then I'd be more okay with it. But I'm not down or anything, but I just want to see the best of us. Is that where you are in terms of intensity, I guess? I don't know, energy?
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment, isn't it? I mean, particularly Arsenal, like I said, I think we did look a little bit more lively and a bit more what's the word? Carried a bit more of a threat against City than we did against Arsenal. So, look, it's we forget, like you say, that those two teams are, if that was the Champions League final this year, between Arsenal and Man City, no one would sort of say how have they got there, So they literally are in the top, 4 or 5 teams in Europe, and to get beaten there is no disgrace. But like you say, it's in all sport, isn't it? Whatever sport you're playing, there's no disgrace in losing. It's how you lose. I think we just haven't quite, like you say, been as combative and as competitive as we could have been in those two games. But look, they're gone now. We've got to look forward. I think one thing I did sort of said to a couple of other guys the other night after or even before the game against City, just hearing Nuno talk, he relaxes me the way that hearing him talk before the game, smile on his face, and you knew that whatever happened, he would get them back and get them focused on this game and but I'm sure we'll. And he had quite a few positive things to say, didn't he, after Wednesday? So he's clearly, trying to focus on the positives and keep the players in a good frame of mind. And I think, if as a footballer, if we can't go to Old Trafford on Saturday evening under the lights on TV and turn up, then then when can you? So it's a huge opportunity for people for those guys to show what they're about, to maybe silence a few of the sort of people that have been waiting for us to fall off our perch in recent weeks, and it's a great opportunity for them to do that. So yeah, I'm feeling like we will get a performance out of the team. Whether that will be enough to get a positive result, question mark, because I think we just don't quite know what Man United are going to turn up. But if we go back out there and perform to the best of our ability, we should be in with a shout of getting something.
Right, will have been edited. You might have noticed a not so seamless transition because my internet just died for about 10 minutes, and then my computer restarted, did a load of updates, and unfortunately, fortunately, Paul's been very patient, and I'm very grateful for that, because there was only about 30 seconds left to go, which we'll do now. If you have enjoyed that, do us a favour, hit like, hit subscribe. You can sign up for membership or Patreon, and do give us a lovely review on iTunes or Spotify. Right, we'll be back after the match tomorrow about 7:45 with Mark and someone else, maybe Paul. I know if not Paul, Ruby is the plan, and then Paul will do the next game, hopefully. Right, thanks for your company. Paul, thank you very much. You've been an absolute hero.
No worries, not at all. It's a pleasure every time. And just to say, I really don't like Man United. I think for me, they're right up there with Derby in terms of teams that get my goat. So I'm really hoping we can go there and I guess burst the Amorim bubble that certainly had a bit of wind knocked out of it the other night by Arsenal. But it'd be great if we could go there and put a big fat Ryan Yates size hole in it and watch it splutter to the ground. So yeah, hoping we win. And just a quick last one on Paul McGregor. Actually, I was at school with Paul McGregor. He was 4 years above me at Bramcote Hills, and it was a great sort of as he obviously broke into the team in the years beyond him leaving school. He was a great inspiration and role model for all the kids at our school. So yeah, it'd be good to see him on the podcast.
Excellent. Right, thanks for Paul's company. Thanks for your company. We'll leave it there. Like I say, hopefully see you tomorrow for the post-match. If not, then we'll see you on Monday. Kelvin's on for that, and then we'll delve deeper into the United game and look ahead to Villa, maybe some January stuff as well. So do join us that. But if not, we shall see you soon.